I'm Michael Parsley. I work for the TWRA. I am the R3 coordinator and the assistant chief of communications. And really what that means is I try and get other people out hunting and fishing in the state of Tennessee. And to that end, we think more people would do it if they had a little bit more tools in the toolbox and knew how to catch fish a lot better or how to hunt a lot better. So a lot of my job is teaching people how to hunt and fish. And I've gotten a lot of my friends involved, and Jason's one of my friends. And not only is he a good friend, he is about as good of a grass fisherman and a bush fisherman that I know. I think it might have to do something with him being very, very stubborn, but
yeah, that's fair.
It pays off. It pays off in the long run. I've seen a couple of years ago. What was that one you caught at Barkley? Eight pounds?
Yeah, 8.2.
8.2 out of a bush in at Barkley. I know exactly where that fish came out of. Today we'll show you the stretches of, I know the stretches of Barkley that we bush fish a lot, and I can show you, good areas to bush fish. Jason, if you want to show Kentucky Lake, I know we normally bush fish a lot around the resort there, the motel or the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so we'll tell you locations that you look for these bushes, what you're looking for, how much water that you're looking for on the bushes, how to read elevation on Kentucky Lake and Barkley, because that means everything this time of year. And you really, really do have to understand how the Corps of Engineers posts their elevation. And, just because it goes up from, say, 305.11 to 305.12, you would think that's not a big change, but it is at some point. So we'll teach you all that. And then Jason has everything rigged up. He'll teach you how to actually punch or flip these trees and how to catch these fish. These fish, this bite is happening right now. Isn't that right, Jason?
Yeah, it is. And again, just to kind of clarify a couple things that Mike hit on, when we talk about bush fishing, which was obviously the title of the seminar that we're doing tonight, and really what we're referring to is buckbrush. It's bushes that have got enough water on them, typically 18 to 24 inches of water. And really what happens is this time of year, sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later. Right now, we're running a little bit behind schedule, but it's when the bass go to spawn or they are coming back out and hitting the edges of these bushes as they're in post-spawn. All that means is obviously spawning time is when they're making babies. Post-spawn is when they've dropped their eggs and are moving out to deeper water. And a bush fishing or flipping bushes is basically just buckbrush that is a real thick base and not a lot of leaves and stuff growing on it yet. But that's really what we're talking about. Bush fishing now is a perfect time of the year. We focus on Barkley and on Kentucky Lake, and the reason why we do that is it's some of the largest concentrations of buckbrush in the entire system here in Tennessee. So a lot of great fishing. Some of the most fun you can have on the water is when you get a bite in the brush, and it's full contact bass fishing, which is what we really love to do. So Mike hit on it. I'm going to get into kind of the nuts and bolts, or in the weeds, as they say, about how setups, what I like to fish. We'll talk about line. We'll talk about reel. We'll talk about rod. We'll talk about gear. We'll talk about soft plastics, hooks, weights, and then some small modifications that you can do that will make you a more effective and more efficient angler when you are out flipping the buckbrush.
Jumping the gun a little bit, you're not one of those people that use braid in these bushes, are you?
I am not. No, sir.
Thank goodness.
I have learned my lesson.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
It makes it tough. All right. So I guess what we need to start off with is this is mainly a bite that occurs on Barkley and Kentucky Lake. And Jason, we normally put in at Dover on Barkley, and there's bushes all around, and we put in at Paris on Kentucky Lake, and there's bushes there, and there are bushes in New Johnsonville too on Kentucky Lake, correct?
There is. And so typically in regard to, well, before I do that, real quick, guys, we've got the chat function, and we also have the Q&A. So feel free to drop any questions, any comments in there, either while I'm going through my part, Mike will be looking, and vice versa. So feel free to get in there. Robin, I see your chat message. I'll get Mike to answer that in regard to the last session that we did being on YouTube. So we'll hit that real fast before we get into it. But typically, the great thing about Barkley is most of that lower end of Barkley is covered up in bushes, anywhere from you go to Bellwood Hollow all the way up past Bumpus Mills, headed toward Kentucky. You're going to get into a really good opportunity for buckbrush and flipping bushes. Typically, what I like to put in, there's a city park right underneath the bridge in Dover. It's a really great area to put in of the lake. With this time of year, when you're focusing on buckbrush, it puts you right in the heart of everything, and so you can hit a lot of good stuff without making real long runs. Usually put in at Paris, landing there on Kentucky Lake, and you can fish that whole area. Sometimes Fat Daddy's there, and Leatherwood's a good place as well. So quite a few options in Kentucky Lake, and you can still not have to run very far, as well as stay here on the Tennessee side. Because again, remember, both of those bodies of water run into the state of Kentucky. If you put it in those two locations that we're talking about, it'll keep you right there on the Tennessee side. Not that you can't go fish the Kentucky side, but if you want to keep your, just use the one license, you can stay and put it in those locations.
Jason, I'm going to share my screen so
sure,
people can understand what we're talking about. All right, so can you see that now?
Yes, sir.
All right, this is Barkley. They're twin rivers, Barkley and Kentucky Lake. I hope everybody knows that. Kentucky Lake, of course, is much, much larger than Barkley, but this is Barkley. And there are drawbacks and benefits to fishing both. Now, Barkley, it fishes a lot easier because you can run around and fish a lot of spots in a very short period of time. Whereas Kentucky Lake is enormous. And if you choose Paris, you start flipping around the hotel up there. Really, the pocket at the hotel is one of the better spots. You might spend a full day in that one pocket. If you go to Barkley, you can fish from 10 miles south of Dover to 10 miles north of Dover and cover that all in one day. So there's drawbacks to Barkley as well. The drawbacks, Jason, I'm sure you know the absolute worst thing that can happen on fishing Barkley, right? And that is water. Water level matters. So what you're looking for on Barkley and Kentucky Lake is summer pool on both of those lakes, because they're connected right up here, right in, I think it is in Kentucky, right?
It is. It's near, I call it Cuttawa. Cuttawa, there's a lot of different names for it, but there's a little cut through all the way at the very top near Benton County.
So they are connected by, by a waterway right before the dam up there. So the elevation on both are the same. And the way I get my elevation is an app. It's called Tva Lake Info. Can you see that, Jason?
I cannot. No, sir.
Because I'm sharing screen. I'll show you here in a minute. But it's the Tva Lake Info app. If you get that app, for every lake in the state of Tennessee, I can tell you up to the minute what the generation schedule is. and what the lake elevation is currently. So on Kentucky Lake, what you're looking for is a summertime elevation of 359. That's summer pool, okay? Summer pool is at 359. Anywhere that you get to summer pool, there are going to be trees in the water, okay? And any amount of water that you get over summer pool just makes the bite even better. Today, it looks like they are trying to draw it down again. It was 358, almost 359. It's summer pool. So they're trying to, it looks like they're trying to get it down. I guess they expect a little bit more rain this week.
Yeah, they do. And just real quick, what that means to everybody is, again, these are power generation lakes from the TVA. And what they do is during the wintertime, it's called the winter drawdown. They lower the lake levels. Do that just because typically winter and springtime, there's a lot more rain, so a lot more water coming into the system. So you draw it down, so there's a bunch of rain. As it fills back up, it just helps you maintain flood control. And so when you talk about pools, all that means is the actual level of the lake at certain times of the year. Winter is going to be lower. Again, as Mike just said, summer pool, they bring the water up because typically during the summer there's not as much rain. And so that's what winter pool and summer pool means. It's just the lake elevation or the lake depth, or how much water is in the system. And really, another way to think about it is when you look at the bank where the water is there in the summer, that's where it consistently stays at for the most time until it starts getting colder. Then they'll draw it down. And so your normal bank is, that's typically summer pool, where you normally see the bank. And when you see the water draw down and you look at a bank line, that's the summer pool. So just trying to clarification, make sure everybody's on the same page.
That's right. And so on Kentucky Lake, that normal elevation line that you see where the shore is eaten away at by the water, that on Kentucky Lake and Barkley is 359 above sea level. So it's 359 feet above sea level. And so every bit of water lower than that is below summer pool. Every bit of water above that is above summer pool. So 359 is kind of like what you're really, really looking for, and hopefully a little better than that. So if you get this this app, it's Tva Lake Info. Okay. Tva Lake Info, it will tell you how many generators are generating, which matters especially when you get into June and you start fishing ledges. It also matters right now when you're fishing bushes. The more current, the better they suck up into these bushes. So that's a good thing to know. And then it also, you want to look on this Tva Lake Info app, because if you can pick a day to go, you want to pick a day where they're filling Kentucky Lake or Barkley, not where they're drawing it out. So, and they tell you that their predicted amount of water that is coming into the system or leaving the system. So on this app, I can tell you that today they pretty much held it steady all day. It was 358.7 to 358.8, and that's a 1/10 of a foot. Okay, so it's not a great deal of change. All right, 358.8 and 358.7, that they count it in tenths or hundredths of feet. Okay, so maybe even less. I guess it'd be just a little more than an inch. It changed today. Now, tomorrow they're going to keep it the same. The next day it gets a little better, 358.9, and then Wednesday is 359. And they tell you the average inflow on this app. So when you see inflow of 108,000 cubic feet per second, okay, CFS, and you see that the average outflow is only 85, that means they are filling up the lake. That's good. That means the water is going to be rising all day. If you see, like on Tuesday, tomorrow, the average inflow is 49,000. The average outflow is 65,000. What does that mean, Jason?
They're bringing her down.
They're bringing the lake down. So they're sucking the water back out of it more than likely because they expect a rain event and they don't want to bring it all the way up. At some point this year, in the next 2 weeks, they're going to bring the water up and it's going to cover these bushes probably 3/4 of the way. It's still not perfect. When it's perfect, it's 360, 361. If you see 360 or 361 on this TVA Lake Info app, that is the day to go, especially if they're filling it up. You don't, even if it's 361 and they're draining a little bit, the fish are fine. If it's 359 and they're draining it, you might want to pick another day because 359 is just at summer pool. It's going to be what, the first quarter of that bush, maybe. Yeah, maybe. And so hopefully they let this lake fill on up a little bit more. So TVA Lake Info, plan your trip based upon that app.
And I can't, Mike said it, but I can't stress enough, guys. This bite is fantastic and it's wonderful. It can be a little fickle if you don't take the time to take literally 5 minutes worth of research, use the app, see what the water's doing. And then from there, once you know if there's water, enough water on the bushes, then get out and go fish them. If there's not, not that you can't catch them, it's going to be very hard to catch them. And to be quite honest, there's better ways that you can catch fish on those lakes this time of year if the water is not up where it needs to be. Don't go waste your time on the bushes. If it's that situation and you only have 1 day to go fishing, absolutely get out, enjoy it. But if those conditions or if there's not enough water, go fish them and give them a try. I definitely hit the outside ones closest to deep water, but don't go plan a day around bush fishing because what I don't want you to do is go out and get frustrated, not catch anything, and then you don't go back and try because it is quite honestly some of the most fun fishing that you can do. Or
just fail to look at the app and get out there and it's 358.5 and water is nowhere near the bushes and you get there and then you say, what bushes? There are no bushes in the water.
Yeah.
So let me share this screen and I'm going to show people, and Jason, you can point me to some spots that you fish in Kentucky Lake. I'll show people some spots that I know hold good fish on Barkley. So on Barkley, there are pretty much every cut on this lake holds bushes. Isn't that right, Jason?
Yeah, it does. I mean, again, guys, it's part of the Cumberland, and it has a lot of oxbows in it. It's a silt bottom lake. It doesn't have the depth, and more importantly, Kentucky Lake is more of a pea gravel chunk rock kind of bottom, and so you don't have the major underneath the water shifts of the overall sediment like you do on Barkley, and because of that, you get a lot more areas that wash out. And what I mean by wash out is it creates these oxbows. And all an oxbow is just, if you look at this main river channel and these, it looks like small lakes off of the main lake, that's considered an oxbow. And it's just where, again, because it's a silt bottom and there's a lot of water throughout the years, it's blown out the banks and created all these backwaters. Because of that, there's a ton more bushes because of just the overall water knocking through the bank of the river and creating, just think of a field getting flooded. How many bushes would be in that lake if a field next to your house got flooded? Same concept to think about.
So something to think about. I just started thinking about this, I was up at my farm this weekend and all the yellow flowers were blooming in the fields. And if you get out there and you don't see any bushes that you can really fish, there will be yellow flowers in the water right now. And a spinnerbait in those yellow flowers is absolutely deadly. So let's get to where all the bushes are. All these oxbows hold bushes. Okay. Matter of fact, what, this one right here, Jason?
It is.
Right on, well, let's see. It's right here, isn't it? Or is it's right here is where you caught that 9-pounder, isn't it? Tell us.
Well, go to your left just a little bit, and that right there, right in the cut between those two, they're little islands actually.
Yeah.
Right in that area right there. I've caught more big fish in that little cut than most people have in their entire lifetime. It's just been one of those deals that it just keeps reloading. So that is where I caught a little over 8-pounder, and I've caught multiple that between 5 and 6 pounds just in that little area. Now they're not there every single time, but go hit them, and they'll be there at times.
And so what makes this place ultra good for Jason is not that this is different from every other little island in this place, believe it or not. This right here, can you see me circling that, Jason?
Yes, sir.
Huge community hole on this lake, okay? It's an enormous community hole. This is too. These are two of the better places to fish on the lake when it comes to ledge fishing in June. And people ledge fish those two locations in June because it's close to deep water and it has current. If you're a fish and you were here or here, the closest bushes that you can get to are all along these two little shallow areas. Okay, so both sides of this side and these little islands have bushes. All of this has bushes. But like Jason said, these two out in the center are the best. They got shallow water on the back, and that shallow water is full of yellow flowers. And it's got a channel cutting it right through there. You can run that channel if you're careful. And then the other side is sometimes the better side because it's got deeper water.
Yeah, Mike, can you zoom in just a hair? And I'll kind of explain that a little bit. When you look at this, and you hit the nail on the head, it's because it's so close to deep water. But if you look at that little cut that I was just talking about, look at the vicinity of how close that deeper water is compared to other areas and other little islands out here. If you look to the right, you see this 2, 3, and 4, 5 foot. If you look at that cut, you've got a 7 foot on the left-hand side. You've got 11 foot on the right-hand side, which are those contour lines are really close. So it tells you that depth is very close to the island, and then it drops off into 16 foot. Now, if you look to the left, the very far left, yeah, you see this kind of a hole at 24 foot. But what you have is you have some tight contour lines right above it to the left of that deep hole. But what you have on these islands is because now you have this cut from what makes it even more interesting. You have that cut. You have, Mike just said, you have shallow water on the backside of them with yellow flowers. And then you have this deeper water right there, where if you look to the left, even though it may be deeper, you don't have that shallow water to deep water access as close or as much. And so what happens is these fish are back here, they're spawning, they're doing all their thing, and then they start to want to work their way out toward that main river where they're going to, or these cuts that Mike just point out at where they want to spend the summertime. And so that is a great transition or a great highway for them to work from shallow water, have some cover and have some areas to stop off on, and then get up to these ledges where they're going to spend the summer in some deeper water where the shed passes right back through them. So that's the reason why. And typically, guys, if you go somewhere on any lake and you go to a certain spot and you consistently catch fish year after year in a certain area, if you get a map, and again, this what Mike is using, navionics.com, is a free website. Anybody can go to it. Go find your spot on the map and zoom into it and look at it. You're going to find there's a certain specific reason why the area you keep catching fish in, something is unique about it compared to other areas. And this is a prime example of that. Another area, Mike, while we're talking about bushes, is as you look to the right of that channel, Mike, you can zoom back in real quick for me, where we were talking. And if you look at, there's these, it'll actually tell you these maps and your chart plotter, you can actually see the channel. And so it kind of comes in, and then it's right across, and you can follow it all the way back through this whole area. Anytime you see areas that look like this on the map, you don't even have to go necessarily to the lake and look at it. You know, on Barkley, when it looks like this, these oxbows off the lake, there's going to be bushes. And the other good thing to look at is whenever you see these really large, shallow flats with channels in the middle. So if you look at right where we were talking about earlier, that whole backside, there is no contour lines, which tells me, and it should tell you, hey, that is super shallow. After 1 foot or so, there's no more contour lines. And so when you look at the map, you look at Barkley, you see these areas, you don't even have to go there to know that there's bushes there. And that whole area we're looking at is absolutely covered up in them. What I would do, the next piece is when you want to look for bushes to fish, you can spend a long time flipping all these bushes. But what I'm going to look for, I'm going to go for the high percentage areas, and that's going to be bushes that are near deep water, that are near the channel, and even more importantly, if I can get near a channel swing. All a channel swing is a bend in the channel. If it's going left to right and then it makes a dip, a curve, a dog leg, any terminology you want to use, those are great areas to look at as well. So if you look at the map that we're looking at, if you zoom out just a hair bit for me, Mike. When you look at where this thing coming in, and you can see the channel, you see that red line, which is actually some power lines. You're going across, and then to your right, and it drops down toward this little island on your right-hand side. Right there where it makes that turn is a fantastic area, right where Mike has his cursor, and right above that, that's where that channel is swinging toward the bank and then coming back down. Fish can be in that channel. They can slide up to the bush. They can rest, they can get shade, they can feed, and then all they have to do is just slide right back down to deeper water for more security. Definitely high percentage areas to go and try when you're trying to dissect. And again, if you saw this area, you would get overwhelmed because it's literally hundreds of thousands of bushes, and you don't even, where do I even start? Start on your highest percentage areas, any place that makes a point, any place near anywhere, any water near deep, any bushes, near deep water, and then any place that channel swings. Those are your 3 areas that you want to look at, focus on first, and then go from there.
So like Jason's saying, if you want to cut down on the amount of bushes that you're fishing, you want to find the bushes that are closest to deep water. Not that fish won't, I've seen them get up in every one. It shows an island here. That's not an island. It is all underwater and it's all bushes. Okay, so all of that is bushes with water on it. You're not going to be able to flip all the bushes in the center, but I have seen the fish get up in there. I've pulled some out of there. So we're not saying that the fish won't get in the middle of this stuff, but everybody, when it gets right on Barkley and Kentucky Lake, everyone that's in the know are going to be fishing these islands, right? So you have to get in line and just put your head down and go, right? But what we want you to know is until you start hitting fish, when you hit one, there are going to be more. Right? If you don't hit any, there's probably a very low likelihood that you hit a lot of them. So what you want to do until you run into a group of them is fish the likely spots. You see how the deep water is very, very close to this point, this point, this point. Like Jason was saying, when he drug those fish out of these little points right here, these are the ends of the bushes. So ends of bushes, points that stick out into deeper water, these are going to hold isolated deeper bushes that hold fish. Not that somebody hadn't already come in there and caught that fish. But the thing is, those bushes stick out far enough in to deeper water, it's going to grab another fish. It's going to do what people call reload. So it's going to reload a lot faster than a bush back here. A bush back here, that fish has got to wander up there, and it's going to take him, a day or so. This bush, if you catch one off of it or somebody else does, it might reload in an hour. So
those, and Mike said it right. Those spots typically reload, and the reason, in the way that I guess to think about it is, if there was a fish there was a reason why there was a fish hanging out that spot. So if it was good for one, it's typically good for another one. And so as you catch one, or somebody that you don't even know about caught one before you did, it doesn't matter, because it's kind of like a magnet in that whole area. More fish are going to come to it, and you can come back in and catch them. Don't be afraid to go back down. If you say you go down this island on that top side and you catch one, don't catch anything else. Go fish somewhere else. A couple hours later, come back and hit it again. They're absolutely, they will come in waves, meaning that certain times of the day will be feeding windows, or there'll be something that happens that causes those fish to either turn on, or if they weren't up in the bushes very good, to slide up in them. So if you know it's a good spot, absolutely come back and hit it again. I've been a day where I went multiple times. When I say multiple, 6, 7 times in a day, coming back to those areas in a tournament scenario, just because I have that much confidence, and I know at some point those fish are going to show up out there.
Yeah, my friend and Jason's friend Anthony and I on Old Hickory, and this is a lesson that I learned long ago, but our friend Anthony, there are 2 banks on Old Hickory, and I've seen him one year. I saw him win, I think he won 6 tournaments off those 2 banks, and he would hit one at 9:30, and he would fish it for 3 hours, and then he would hit the other one and fish it the rest of the day. And those banks were 100 yards long, and all he did was go up and down all day long. So if you find fish on this stretch, go up and down till you stop catching them. Just don't start here. Go down and catch 4 and say, well, I've burned that, and move on. You didn't catch every fish. If you caught 4, there are probably 400 in those trees. So continue to go up and down that stretch until you stop catching fish. Why run away from them, right? So that is Lick Creek. Where we put in is City Park. City Park's right here, right, Jason?
It is. It's right there by the bridge.
And so we put in here, this is Lick, one of the better creeks on this lake. Those are great bushes right there. Like Jason says, this island is a great area, and where it rubs up against that peninsula coming out is a great area too. This right here is also full of bushes. I've fished that. I've caught some fish right there. It's all of Lick Creek is good. This is Long Creek. You can also get into it, and it has bushes. So lots of places to run around there. One of the better spots that I've seen, I've got a couple more spots on Barkley, and then we'll move over to Kentucky Lake. But these little oxbows down here hold water, deeper bushes than what I've seen Lick Creek hold. So if you get into Lick Creek and you realize that, man, the water's just not right on these bushes for some reason, these creeks on the left side, these 2, they hold for some reason. Maybe it's just the taper of the bank or whatever. The bushes in those 2 creeks stay a little deeper. So if, like I said, if you're finding the bushes in Lick Creek only got 3 or 4 inches on them, you can come down here to these, and you can find deeper bushes, and they hold good fish as well. And so actually I like fishing both of them creeks a little better. Jason stays in Lick, I stay up here, or I go way up here to this huge oxbow and I fish all these bushes. Like I said, all these islands that it looks like islands are not islands. They are bushes. Okay, so this is Bear Creek. This is another get in line and wait your turn kind of place because everybody knows about it, right? It's Bear Creek, and these islands are very, very high percentage areas because it's got a pretty good channel, and these islands have a lot of points on them with bushes. So I'll zoom in. Jason, you fish this too, right? Our friend Mark.
I do. It's kind of a really cool spot just because of how the channel swings. It's kind of hairy to run. You're going to be swinging as you're driving your boat all across the creek. It feels like just because of how it swings.
You see the creek channel? You got to follow that creek channel.
Yeah, that's exactly how you run your boat in it. So it can be a little unique, but again, it's some of the deepest water, consistent deep water in that area. And as you can look at the channel, I mean, you got some really deep spots, some 18s, some 20s. And for Barkley, that's really, really deep other than the main channel. And it's a great place to fish that. And then Mark, if you can scroll up just a hair, and then we'll get out of here and go to Kentucky Lake, but Bumpus Mills.
Oh yeah. Way up.
It is way up there.
And full of bushes. All of this.
Yeah. To your right hand, yeah. All of that is Bumpus Mills.
All of this that looks like an island, all of this, all of that, it's all bushes. So that's a very good area to fish. What's the other little, hold on, is that Bumpus? That's not. Yeah, it is Bumpus.
Yeah, that's Bumpus. Yes, sir.
What's the other little cut down here, Jason? Across from Bear that we always fish. What is that? Is that one that cuts back hard right? Is that it right there?
No, you keep going down.
Here it is.
Yep.
Blue. All this, these, and when the water gets right, all this in the very back. All these little dots are bushes. It's not islands. So if you see that on your map, you better know that's bushes. And if the water is right, the fish are going to be in those bushes. If it's 359 and above, that's where they're going to be. And Jason said, they get in there and spawn, and they absolutely do. And you'll know a spawning bush bite versus another bite. But another thing that they do, they'll get in there and spawn, and then they'll hang out. And they're hanging out because shad get in there and spawn next. Okay, so a lot of our lakes have already seen a shad spawn. Some of our lakes are still a little cold. Some of our lakes are holding the bass back from bedding in huge waves. Old Hickory is a little cool. There are a lot of bedding fish on Old Hickory, but some of them haven't even thought about it because it's cold. So we've had a weird delayed spring, and it's going to delay all these bites. So, but Blue, Lick, Bear, and Bumpus, all those hold really good bush fishing. All of this is bushes. I like bush fishing Barkley a little better than Kentucky Lake. I know it can get bad when you can't get to the fish because the water comes up so much that you can't actually get to them, right, Jason? That's the drawback.
Yeah, that's the frustrating part, is that if the water gets too high, you guys got to remember it's going to get up and over the banks. And so what that does is it cuts off let's just think of the bookend. So the bank is really the bookend for the fish. That's as far as he can go. Well, once you crest that bank and you get way water way up in there, it just creates so much more areas and opportunities for this fish to go. And so you can't really pinpoint them. So it can be frustrating if you get too much water. It can be frustrating if you don't have enough water. And guys, listen, I understand it sounds like the moon has to align and stars have to get together and angels sing for it to work, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Again, just look at your water levels, and then you can sometimes see, what the water's going to do. Is it too high or too low? Just look at that. And again, that doesn't mean you don't go fishing. If the water's too low or the water's too high, you can flip bushes, but you typically in those scenarios, you want to do something a little bit different. That's going to give you a better chance for success.
Right. So if the water was 362, that's 3 foot over summer, give or take.
Huge.
Yeah, that's a lot of water. I mean, 361 is wonderful. And if it's 362 on Barkley, go to Kentucky Lake, because the problem is where this line is here, you're not going to be able to get past that line with your boat. It's not sand or it's not rock or anything like that, but it is 4 foot tall bushes. And you're not going to run your, boats are, now they're, 40, 50. Jason's is $90,000.
That's not true.
You can't run your boat through the bushes, I wouldn't, to get to the fish that are going to be here if it's 362 on Barkley or 362 on Barkley. So go over to Kentucky Lake. If it's 361, man, that's a fun time on Barkley. Now, this is Kentucky Lake. This is Paris. This is the promised land, right, Jason?
Greatest place on earth.
And
it's coming back. It's coming back.
I understand it is back this year. So a lot of people said this is they've not seen the amount of smallmouth coming out of Kentucky Lake like it has this past spring in years. And the guides are saying that when they catch smallmouth like that on Kentucky Lake, that's when Kentucky Lake's very good. So this is Paris. This is the boat ramp at Paris. So that's where we normally put in, right, Jason?
It is actually. It's just up a little bit, Mike. Nope. Keep right above the bridge.
I got you. I see the bridge now. All right. So here's where we normally put in.
Yeah. Paris Landing State Park.
All the ledges we normally fish, things like that, right? And we'll get to that next month. But bushes. First place I would go. This is the motel, right? The hotel?
It is.
Yeah. This is full of bushes. And you can't if you're going to put in at Paris, you got to start there. You got to start right here. Okay. So Kentucky Lake is one huge flat. That's what makes Kentucky Lake great in June, because it's got ledges. If you're looking at these Navionics maps, when you get out on these flats in the very, very back, they're not really defined at all. But I can tell you this, all this has bushes, every bit of that. And the entire back end of this has bushes. The hotel is sitting right here. So I've caught multiple, 5-pound fish just looking at that hotel. So, and I'm pretty sure Jason has as well. It holds bushes right up here as well. If you're not getting the bush bite, these 2 points that kind of kiss right here is a great Carolina rig and rattle trap kind of point. But that's where I would start. Jason, where do you want to go now?
Let's go south. Show real quick. We'll show Leatherwood is a really good one, and then we'll go on the left-hand side of the lake and hit Bass Bay. And guys, if you look at these Navionics, if you just remember what we were looking at a few minutes ago from Barkley, it looks completely different. You got a lighter shade of blue, which in navionics means you have deeper water. It's a much deeper lake. Kentucky Lake is compared to Barkley. What makes Kentucky Lake so great for the bush bite is exactly what Mike said, is that when you get back to these areas, they don't have as many bushes. So when you're looking at a comparison, so I would think of it this way: Barkley, if Barkley is 100%, then Kentucky Lake is a 10 to 15%. Though you don't have as many targets to flip to or to fish in regard to bush fishing, you have them concentrated. So when they're in the bushes at Kentucky Lake, you literally can stay in one area. I have fished and won many tournaments literally just fishing exactly what you see on the right-hand side of your screen. Back and forth, over and over, making loops, letting it rest, and coming back. I have won a ton of money in that area. And again, it's what we said earlier. If it's good for one, that means if you take one out, somebody's going to come in there and fill it. And there's so many bass and there's such a high percentage of the population of bass in a lake. This time of year, when the water's right, we'll go into that cover. And so you literally can, my brother, actually, I think he may be on this call. My brother and I have had multiple days where we'll go out and legitimately catch 75 to 85 bass in the bushes. Not just, hey, I think it's this many, literally counting them and to the point where you catch so many you just wind up losing count. It can happen, and it's not just a miracle type once in a lifetime day. Once you look at this time of year, get the water right, all those bass in that main area are going to funnel to those specific areas this time of year, and your percentages are through the roof just because the large population of that entire creek that we're looking at, most of them are going to move back to the bushes during this period of time.
That's right. All right, so that is Leatherwood.
Yeah, left-hand side, you just look, you got Lick, keep going down a little bit, you should hit Bass Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, these are just a couple areas to go and to try. Bass Bay is really cool. If you look at that on the bottom left-hand side, you can actually see the stair-stepping. It's a really cool way to look at it. And you can literally see the lines, and you can see it stair-stepping and it getting shallower, and the bass just funnel to that area, and you can absolutely beat the brakes off of them. We're going to talk mainly today about flipping the bushes, but Mike said it earlier, a spinner bait on the edge of them. If there's yellow flowers, bushes with yellow flowers that have water on them, throwing a spinner bait through those, you will have an absolute greatest day of fishing you could ever have.
Yeah. Just because the water, see, if it's been 360, and say the TVA said, you know what, we need to pull that. We've got a hurricane, or not a hurricane this time of year, but say we've got a huge system with 3 or 4 inches of water coming, they're going to pull it back out of the trees. And so if it's 361, they're going to get it back down to 358. And those fish are going to pull out of the trees, but they're not going to go far. They're going to stick their nose right to the tree, and you can catch those fish with spinnerbait on the outside of them. So don't get dismayed if you get there and you say, wow, the last weekend the water was in these trees and it's not there anymore. Where'd the fish go? They're just pulled out right outside of those trees, and I've seen a spinnerbait just wear them out. So
yeah. You make a great point, Mike. They're not, if we're in the very back of that cove and they pull the water down a couple feet, those fish aren't leaving that and swimming all the way out here to this white channel, which is hundreds and hundreds of yards. They're just going to pull out to the deepest water that they can, within relatively close to those bushes, to feel safe, have some water over their head, but they're not going all the way to the channel.
That's right. All right. This is New Johnsonville. And this is about as close to Barkley on Kentucky Lake as you can get. Every bit of this is bushes, right, Jason? I mean, it's
pretty much
full of them. If you're going to look for the mecca of bush fishing on Kentucky Lake and not have to hunt and peck around up near Paris, it's got bushes, but like Jason was saying, it's isolated little outcroppings of bushes in Leatherwood, back in Bass Bay, or up there at the hotel. That cut's got bushes everywhere. But if you're looking for just the mother lode of bushes on Kentucky Lake, it doesn't get any better than down here at New Johnsonville. All of this is bushes. All of this is bushes. Yeah, of course, you got to be pretty careful running it, but that's all bushes. The entirety of where you put in here at New Johnsonville, all this is bushes. So if you're looking for bushes on Kentucky Lake, it's hard to pass up New Johnsonville. I guess what you're looking at is the amount of bushes down here at New Johnsonville, the amount of fishable cover that you have down here. You could spend forever, right? If you go up to Paris, there are, like Jason and I have told you, there are a couple spots that you go, and if they're in the trees, that is the only place they're going to be in the trees. And so you can kind of narrow it down a little bit better up there than you can down here at New Johnsonville, because it's just full of bushes. Birdsong is full of bushes, so it's kind of wide open when you get down here. There are just bushes everywhere. And the difference between Kentucky Lake and Barkley, like we said, the shoreline is different on Barkley than it is Kentucky Lake. Kentucky Lake's got a little bit steeper angle to the shoreline, so the water doesn't get, the bass are not going to be able to get behind those bushes, so they get right on the edge, and that's what makes Kentucky Lake a little better when you're talking about 361, 362. If you see that kind of water coming up, get on Kentucky Lake, because that's where you're going to find the fish.
Absolutely right.
All right. Now, in the time we have left, Jason, let's tell them how to rig up.
Yes.
I'll stop sharing here. I'll stop sharing. You show them how to rig your weights. I guess you'll go through either 3/8 or half, depending on what the trees look like, if they've leafed out. Some years you can fish this pattern and the trees haven't even come out yet. And so your weight is going to determine your leaves on your tree is going to determine your weight. The line is pretty much the same all the time. And then we need to tell them what they need to look for bite wise. You're not really feeling the bite more than you're watching the bite. You watch the line. If you see it jump, there's something there. So if you see the tree shake, there's something there. And that happens more than just watching the line and it ticking. The tree will actually move. So let's show them what you got in regard to tying it up.
All right, guys, we are going to start with line. We're going to start with reel, and we're going to start with rod. So we'll start with the rod first. I'll scoot back a little bit. This is a Cashin fishing rod, 100% made here in the U.S., made out of carbon fiber, lifetime warranty. We won't spend a lot of time on it, but trust me, best rod on the market with lifetime warranty. This is actually what I like to use as this rod specifically is the M87 473. M87 473. It's a 7 foot, 3 inches long rod. It is a heavy power, but it also has a fast tip. All that it means is heavy power means back here in the rod, it's got a lot of beef. All right, so it's got a lot of power to be able to hook them and pull them out. But what also means it's got a very fast tip. Let me pull this cover off here. What a fast tip means is that you've got a lot of bend in it. So It's not a broomstick. When you hit that fish, it's going to load up on that rod and allow you to get good hook penetration, but also have the ability and the power to pull that fish out of the cover. Talk about the reel. I'm a huge fan of Lew's. I'm not sponsored by them. I pay retail for them just like you do. But big fan of Lew's reels. This is actually a Lew's Super Duty. I like the Super Duty series. All it is, it's just got beefed up gears. It's got a heavier drag. I think this is either 18 or 20 pound drag. All that means is I can screw it real tight. And when I set the hook on that fish, penetrates the mouth real well, gets a really good deep hook set, and you can drag them out. And that drag is what allows you to do that. Like I said, beefed up gear ratio, gears, beefed up handle, everything's just a little bit stouter. So when you're flipping those bushes. The other thing that's really important with it is, do you want a high speed gear ratio? All a gear ratio is think of a 10-speed bike. Right? So as you're going, you got smaller gears, and as you get faster and faster, your gears get bigger. And all that means is you're getting more power or less power depending on your turn. Gear ratio is the same way. So this one is an 8.3 to 1. So that means for every turn of the reel, I'm getting 8.3 on the other side of the gear ratio, which means I'm picking up a lot of line really fast. Because again, you're making constant flips. So you take it, you flip out in the bush, you work it, reel it back in real fast, do it again. Do it over and over. It's just the same process over and over, and you're flipping back in there. And we'll get into that a little bit deeper here in a second, but I just want to stress, get a good beefy reel, get a high gear ratio reel. Now
that 8 what'd you say, 8.3?
8.3 to 1.
Geez, that's a super fast reel. Now, a lot of people are not Jason Holland and Mike Parsley, and
sure.
They won't have, how many reels you got? 25, 30?
Oh, I don't know how many pairs of shoes my wife has. I don't ask.
If you had to go and get a reel, what's that mid range?
Get a 6.4.
6.4 to 1.
Yeah, get a 6.4 to 1. You can use that across the gamut for about a lot of things.
Point being, if you're going to go out and get a reel, if you're wanting to do everything reasonably well, 6.4 to 1. Don't go. I've got reels that are made for crankbaiting. Okay, one's called the Revo winch, and I think it's 5.3 to 1.
5.3 to 1.
You do not want to use that reel to do this. You'll lose a lot of fish. Because when you hit them and they come out of these trees, they are like rockets. I mean, they dive right under the boat, and you will not catch up with them. So the faster reel you can get, the better. And you can do it with a 6.3. That's fine. Anything above that's even better. But I wouldn't go below that. That's what Jason's point is.
Yeah, a good point. Again, you don't have to go out and have a specific setup for this. This is my flipping setup, and I use the same setup for flipping bushes. If I'm just going down the bank flipping trees, again, do what your budget will allow. Don't go spend a bunch of money and overcommit yourself or buy some stuff that you don't need. Mike said it right. You can go do this with a 6.4 to 1 gear ratio and a medium heavy rod. Will you have as much success? Yeah, I think you will have to work a little bit harder because, again, every time you get more specific to a specific technique with your gear, it makes that whole technique a little bit easier. But that is not to say that you can't do it. You absolutely can. Talk about the line real quick. I personally go with 20 pound fluorocarbon. Some guys will go up to 25. I like 20 because, again, this is what I throw in, day out. So I don't have to go change anything if I go bush fishing. Never really had an issue where I think if I had 25-pound test would have made a difference. You're going to lose some fish, guys, doing this. You just are. They're going to get wrapped up. Something funky is going to happen. You're going to lose some fish every now and then, and that's okay. Getting the bite and enjoying the experiences is what it's really about. But if you look at this line, it's something a little bit unique. And if you can see, it's kind of hard to see on this, but that line actually has some fluorescent green markings on the line. So It goes about, I think it's 3 foot of clear fluorocarbon, then it goes to a foot of fluorescent yellow. Another 3 foot of clear, another foot of fluorescent yellow. And the reason I have that on my flipping line is exactly what Mike just said. This bite, a lot of the time, is going to be a line watcher bite, meaning you're going to flip in there. You're never going to feel it. He's going to hit it on the fall, and you're going to watch your line. It's either going to tick, you'll see it just go pop, or you'll see your line slowly start moving off, and you'll never actually feel the fish. So having this line that has the fluorescent yellow coating on it, once it gets in the water, that color disappears, but it allows me to see my line much better, allows me to see the ticks or see when it swims off. It is a Sunline product. It's actually called the flipping line. It's that simple. And it has a fluorescent yellow or green type color to it so I can see it. So we talked about line, we talked about reel, gear ratio, and that's my setup. Again, use what you can, do what the budget will allow. Let's talk real quick about actually what your rig looks like. Mike hit the nail on the head. So typically, guys, for people that are interested, I usually go Texas rig fishing. I'm a 5/16. That is my favorite weight of all time. Works in a lot of places, and it has a nice slow rate of fall, but it's still heavy enough you can make quite a few presentations. This is completely different in that scenario. Depending on the amount of foliage that is on the bush, how many leaves it has, how thick are those leaves, will depend on really what you do. So I use, in that case, a 3/8 or I use a 1/2 ounce. Now this is tungsten, this is red, this is black. A little tip that I like to use, Mike and I have had this conversation multiple times. I love the color red. I think it just gives it another look, something a little bit different. So I've got some red weights, or a lot of the times what I will do is, if you can see that, I put a little red bead in between the weight and the hook. Again, I like it. It's my kind of thing. Some people, maybe not so much, but I think to me, it gives me confidence. And ultimately in fishing, confidence is everything. So typically what I'll do is I'll have 2 setups. Now again, this is just me because I do this a lot, and I've taken and made the investment to have a couple different setups for it. You don't have to. But in my case, I start with 2 setups, one with the 3/8 and one with the 1/2 ounce. If you only have one setup and you're going to do it, my personal opinion is always start small. Then work your way up if you have to, because you want to be as efficient as you can. You want the slow rate of fall as you possibly can in most scenarios. So if you only have one setup, start with a 5/16 if you can get away with it. If you have to go 3/8 and then go to 1/2 ounce.
And here's how you're going to know when to change. Okay. If you're not getting the weight and the lure through the bush, and it's hanging in the top of the bush, get heavier. I don't think I've ever gotten any heavier than a 1/2, but I've used a 1/2 a lot, especially this time of year. A 1/2 is pretty much standard. But if you're wadding up your line on top of the bush, you got to get heavier. Now, another thing you got to understand, if you're getting through the top with a 3/8 ounce tungsten, and we only use tungsten, you're not going to break off tungsten lures in these trees, believe it or not. You can always get them pretty much back. But if you feel that you're getting through the top with 3/8, but you don't feel that weight getting down to the root ball, you've got to get down to where that tree hits the bottom of the lake. And if you're not getting there, you're not going to catch them. Those fish are sitting in the root ball of that tree, and it's got to hit down there to catch them. So then you would get heavier as well. I know I went with a friend a couple of years ago, and he wasn't making it all the way down to the bottom of the tree, but I was getting bit. My friend was not. Isn't that right, Jason?
Yeah, I wonder who that friend was. That was me, by the way. I will take full responsibility. I was not getting deep enough, and Mike absolutely beat the brakes off of me that day. So lesson learned. You're better off to make sure you get deep. And I guess one thing we need to make sure that I don't know that I explained well enough. when you're pitching to these bushes or fishing the bushes, what you're aiming for or what you're casting to is you want to get to the very middle of that bush, just like Mike said. You want to get to the root ball, the middle, the thickest, nastiest part of that bush. So a lot of times you'll flip in there. Sometimes you'll have to kind of go up and over. You may have to kind of flip over a tree limb. However you can get it back there. But you have to get it next to the base of that tree. You have to get it all the way down to the base. And so that is what, when you see a bush, you're thinking, all right, I see a bush. Do I fish this little edge of the branches? No, get as deep as you can. When you look at that bush and look for the gnarliest, nastiest, most convoluted branches all twisted, that is where you're trying to get as close as you possibly can. Sometimes you're never going to get to the middle. It's just too thick, and the only way you get to the middle is with a chainsaw. But your goal, every time you see a bush and that you're trying to fish, you want to try to flip to the gnarliest, nastiest middle of that bush. And that's what you're shooting for. So let's go. Again, we got 15 minutes, so about 10.
Let's say it's not out of the ordinary to take your weight and lure and flip it 5 feet in the air and over into the center of the bush. I've had fish stuck 5 feet in the air and had to go grab them standing up. So that happens. That's the way to catch these fish. Now, show what it looks like tied up. Listen.
Yeah, so a couple things we're going to do. One, remember, you want to keep your weight and your hook together. So to do that, if you can see these are little bobber stoppers. Get them anywhere, cheap. I think I paid $1, $2 for this whole pack.
Gotta have them.
Gotta have them. Put your bobber stopper on. Come back. Put your weight on. This is tungsten, 1/2 ounce. For me, I'm going to put either a black bead if I've got a red weight, or I will put a red bead. Oh, that's a black one, but here you go. A red bead if I'm throwing a black weight. I like it for 2 reasons. One, I think it gives it a little bit extra flash, but what's really cool is that weight, and I'll kind of show you, will bang against, if you can see this or not, there's the bead, there's the weight. And this will bang against each other and cause a little clacking sound. Again, now we're adding another layer of attractant to that. And the other part of that is it's going to protect your knot. That weight, here's your line, and that weight just keeps banging against it. I like a bead because it protects it. Now, let's talk about hooks. Depending on your bait size, you're going to want anywhere between a 3/0 to a 5/0. My go-to hook is this little hook right here. It is a 5/0. I'm trying to put it on my hat so you can see it. It's a 5/0 Trokar flipping hook. So it's a straight shank hook. Has a little bait keeper right here. This is called the Pro V bend. As you can see, it's not a normal circular bend like a normal flipping hook. This is a normal flipping hook. There, you can see that a little bit better. This has a bend in it. It just, once the hook gets to the lip, it allows it to kind of pin. Their mouth is pinned right here on this bend. I like a little bit better. This, again, is just a Trokar straight TK 130 flipping hook. Works great as well. I like a 5/0, big beefy hook. Or you can use, this is the Trokar, just your normal wide gap worm hook. Again, you don't have to go out and buy special hooks. Most everybody, if you bass fish, is going to have a wide gap circle kind of hook like this. These will work just fine. You may have to work a little bit harder because it may slide off a little bit, but it'll work just fine. Now, something new on the market that I've tried a little bit this year, I'll really get to dive into it a little bit more, but is this hook right here. We've talked about it before, but it's a Tokyo rig. This is actually, they're heavy duty, and it uses the straight shake flipping hook. Where this is really cool is because, again, this bar gives it the weight separation. Your weight is actually down here on this bar and not at the top like a normal rig. And so when it falls straight down. Now, it gets a little funky if you get some real heavy stuff because you got more moving parts. But around wood, if it's not, around bushes, if it's not too crazy, Tokyo rig works really good, gives it a different presentation, separates the hook. And the other cool thing is when you flip it in, because that weight is hanging down and it's not having to pendulum over, when you flip it, it goes straight to the bottom. Really, really cool. Now, something else that you can do, and Mike and I have a friend named Jason Abernathy who is out in Arizona, loves to jig fish out there in the West, use a lot of jigs, a lot of deep water, a lot of rocks. And so when he comes up to Barkley this time of year, and he'll come in for a few days, and we'll go flipping bushes, which is what we love to do, he always, for the most part, uses a jig. Now, a jig is, here's a version. This is the Strike King flipping jig. This is the Flip Out by Missile Baits. Again, a jig is just a jig head with a skirt and a weed guard. They work great. They have a tendency sometimes to catch a little bit bigger fish, but you're going to work a little bit harder using them because, again, the Texas rig is completely weedless, where a jig will have a weed guard. And so you gotta work a little bit more. You gotta be a little bit more careful because you can get hung up a little bit. So we talked about weights, we talked about hooks, we talked about jigs. Go right ahead, Mike.
What baits you got?
We're gonna go baits. All right, so I'll show you my two favorite, and these are what I go to 99% of the time. First one is the Missile D-Bomb. This is the full size. It's a creature style type bait. Doesn't have a lot of curly appendages, which has a tendency to get wrapped around branches. Here's kind of what you can see on the backside, what they look like. This is my go-to. And then the other one, if the water's a little bit warmer, Mike knows this one. This is the 4-inch Pit Boss. Another great one. It has a little bit more action than the D-Bomb. So if the water's a little bit warmer, I'll go with this one just because it has more action and it's more natural. The other thing that you can do is downsize if you're not getting bites. This is the Baby D-Bomb. And then the other thing that we'll hit on real fast, if that bush bite's not working, we talked about a spinner bait. Another wonderful bait to use, if they have slid out a little bit, is using a Yamamoto Senko. You can use that on your normal Texas rig. This is the Missile Baits 6.5-inch quiver. And you can either use it on your Texas rig outside of the bushes, or you can wacky rig it. And it's another great opportunity to do that. So again, 20-pound line, 3/8 to 1/2 ounce weight, 4 to 5-aught hook. Make sure you match that up with the specific soft plastic lure. What you don't want to do is get a hook that's too big for your soft plastic, or one that's too small, just because it'll wind up working you too hard. Or you can go to a jig.
Let me a couple of things you hit about all the baits. There were a couple more. The Pit Boss, the Missile Bait, they're all what I would call beaver style baits. If you see Sweet Beaver or Pit Boss, I mean, anything without appendages. What you want to stay away from is a lot of things that will grab on the tree, because that will just frustrate you. If you're not getting through, you're not where the fish are. So you've got to get through efficiently, and that's something that's just some type of creature bait without any real legs and arms and things like that on it. You don't want that. When we first started doing this, you remember when we first started doing this, we would throw not Pit Bosses and not beavers, tubes.
Yeah.
Tubes, little 3-inch, 3.5-inch tubes was the ticket.
We need to get back to that, Mike. I'm telling you, you watch these tournaments. There's a lot of guys that have, there's been a revival of the tube, of the spinner bait, just stuff that used to be real famous that everybody used, and it's kind of fallen out of favor.
Yep.
Tube is where it's at. I bought some last week.
Tube, and truthfully, I fished little 3.5-inch tubes, and then there were days that you remember we would buy bags of 6-inch tubes. Those things were enormous, and you
looks like little octopuses.
Yeah, and they would completely just cream those tubes in those trees. So think about that. If you can find big tubes, I think they were 6-inch tubes.
They were
about as big around as a cigar. So think about that. And then let's talk about, you talked a little bit about the bite, what you're looking for. You're fishing in the center of the tree, not on the edge. You don't want to be on the edge. Those fish are in the center of that tree. So drop into the center of the tree. You're flipping it up in the air and letting it come down, if you got a lot of leaves, you're going to have to come up in the air and let it bang through the leaves, because if you lay it in there, it's just going to wad up on top of the tree. So give it some air and let it come down through that tree. And if everything's right, when it hits the bottom, you're going to see two things. You're going to either see your line just tick, and it's just going to ripple the water. That means there's something there. Or another way they bite is they absolutely crush it, and you will see the entire tree move. He's got it. Okay, so that's bite number 2. Bite number 3 is you pick up and you feel him dog on it. He won't let go. It's kind of like a grass bite in that regard. If you pick up, he'll pull back on you, and you better set the hook, or once he feels you pulling on him, he's going to let go of it. So those are the 3 bites you're going to feel. Once you set the hook, and this is one of those hook sets that Jason likes to call, the shotgun. You're trying to break his, I don't want you to break your rod, but hit him as hard as you can, because what you're trying to do is move him out of that tree as fast as you can. If he does not come out of the tree, or she, what you need to do is keep a little bit of steady pressure, and normally that fish works its way out of the bush, right, Jason? If you keep steady pressure on her, she'll work her way out. If you just say, you know what, I'm just going to let her go, she's liable to run 10 yards back in the trees. You just keep steady pressure on her so she knows she's hooked. A hooked fish normally runs for deeper water. The only deep water is where your boat is. So she's going to try and get to you as long as you just keep a little steady pressure on her. Don't try and force her through the tree. Just let her work her way out. What do you normally do when you get – I've had them where you have to pin them through at the tree. You just got 3 foot in the air and you kind of have to go at them. But the majority of the time, let them work their way out. What do you do, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, everything you said is exactly spot on. The only thing that I will add to that is if you tried all of those, everything Mike has said, and it nothing works, but this fish is still there. The only thing you have left to do is go completely the opposite, and that would be just open the bail, try to give her some slack, and cross your fingers that she works her way out. But 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get her. But that's your last option, would just give her complete slack and just hope for some crazy reason she decides to swim out of the area that she has toward the open water. But everything Mike said is exactly how I do it. Sometimes you just get them pinned, they're not coming out, turn your trolling motor on high, hopefully you got a buddy, and just go in there and get them. Hand him the rod while you get there on your belly, or I wouldn't jump, whatever you got to do, get the fish. And but it's a lot of fun. Bush shakers, that's what I call them. Guys, there's nothing more fun when you flip in and the whole area you just start shaking. There's nothing any more fun. And just to Mike's point, when you set the hook, I'm trying to pull her tail all the way through her mouth in a hook set, because that's how hard you got to hit them. You got to get them up and you got to get them out. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get their head turned, pointed up, and not pointed down. And you're gonna lose a few, but I'm telling you what, it's the most fun bite, and it's worth losing a couple over.
And like Jason said, the only specialized equipment that you really need, most of us, if we're going to go bass fishing, we have a 6-3-1. That's about average. You cannot do this with a spinning reel. You cannot do this with a limber rod. You cannot do this with a fiberglass rod. You really can't. You can't go and get an ugly stick and do this. It's just not going to work. When you set the hook, the fish is just going to stay in the tree. You've got to get something with a lot of backbone. Matter of fact, like Jason said, that pole he had, it'll do it. And it's a telephone pole. That's kind of what you need. His is a little bit specialized because it's got a lot more tip. So when he does get the fish out, he can play that fish a little better. But You got to have something that really can move that fish in a hurry, and a fiberglass or a limber rod just won't do it. You got to have something that is stout. So don't go out there and say, Mike and Jason said the fish are in the bushes, and go out there with a spinning reel. It won't work.
It will be a long, long day of heartbreak. Last thing I'll add, because we got 3 minutes here, is I said I use 20-pound fluorocarbon line. I get the question a lot is, well, why are you not using braided line, 40-pound, 65-pound test braid? Why aren't you using that in the bushes? Because you need all that power. But the problem with braided line is because it is a very loose, limp line. When you flip in that bush, you flip over a limb or a little bitty anything sticking out of that branch, braid has a tendency to wrap around. It has a tendency, because it's really limp, to grab onto everything, and it causes all kinds of problems. That's number one. Number two is that there's going to be times when you flip really deep up in there, you're hung up, and it's just not going to come out. Well, you need at least to have the opportunity to break that line off, or instead of having to cut it and lose all of that length that you may have back there, another 15, 20 yards worth of line. You can't break 65-pound braid. Maybe you can if you tie it to a bumper and the other to a tree and hit it at 60 miles an hour, but you're not going to be able to pull and break 65-pound braid. So you have to cut it, and then you lose all of that. So with 20-pound fluoro, worst case scenario, I can really dog on it and get it to break at the knot, and I save that amount of line. And so that's the two reasons. Main reason is it's so limp, it catches on absolutely everything, and it'll work you to death. So that's all I got. We're down here to the last. Make sure, again, you come out, check out Jason Holland Fishing, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all the social media platforms, now even TikTok, which I still find, thank God for a 18-year-old daughter that can put it out there and post it for me. But go out, have a good time. Hit me up on social media, like, follow, all that kind of stuff. But more importantly, use me as a resource. I have a lot of folks that reach out to me after these seminars and things that I do with Mike and the TWRA with questions. That's why I'm here. Use me as a resource. Mike brings me on and involves me to help teach people how to fish. So don't let it just end here, the seminar. Reach out. I'm happy to do it. Don't forget the three main things in life: your faith, your family, and your fishing. Thanks, Mike, for having me on again. I look forward to doing it again next month.
No problem. I got a question I need to answer. Todd says he goes out with his daughter and they camp on Kentucky Lake.
Okay. So,
Todd, you go out in canoes and kayaks and things like that at Kentucky Lake. That's good. If you were going to get to this bite, that's going to be in your wheelhouse, because the back of all these pockets are going to have bushes. So go out into the back of these pockets, and you can flip these bushes from a canoe or from a kayak or whatever. You can put in there by the hotel on Kentucky Lake and spend a day in that pocket fishing with your daughter, flipping these bushes. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Hey, Todd, I'll tell you, this is one of those unique bites and times that the kayakers actually have the biggest advantage of anybody on the lake, because you're going to be able to get to water and, more importantly, bushes that the guys like myself in the big fiberglass boat or the guys in the aluminum boats just can't get back to. And that is a fantastic time in kayakers. These are those special times when, if you're in a kayak, you're going to have a bigger advantage than anybody else. And so take full advantage of it. Get it, knock it out, and catch some of the biggest bass of the year.
We got a question of what's next. We got there are a couple of next great bites, but what you're really looking for on the next great bite, I think Jason and I are probably chomping at the bit for it to actually happen this year. It's not happened like it should in a couple years, but we'll be back at Kentucky Lake.
Ledge bite.
The ledge bite on Kentucky Lake. Really, ledge bite, Kentucky Lake, Pickwick, Nickajack, Chickamauga, Barkley, even Old Hickory, all have ledges, and ledge fishing, when it's right, you can catch 100 fish in a day.
Absolutely. No joke.
Catch 25 in 25 minutes. I did it last year with our friend Ian, who's a guide out here on Old Hickory. So probably next month we're going to be doing ledge fishing. We hope everybody comes back. We're going to do hopefully, if the water will get up in these bushes correctly, if the TVA will let it, Jason and I are going out there this coming weekend and going to do a video on how to flip these bushes, and we'll put that out on YouTube. We'll put this class out there for everyone, but we're going to do a video, and hopefully we can show you actually how to flip these bushes, and that's the goal. Get out there and show you how to do it, and then we'll go out on Kentucky Lake in June and hopefully find some ledge fish. Maybe we'll get our friend Ian out there too. So
one of the best that I've ever met.
Yeah. So everybody get out there, have fun. These classes are really to teach you how to do things, and really what I do. I like to have fun fishing. I don't do a lot of tournaments anymore. If I do, they're out here on Old Hickory, and I fish with my friends. And that's what makes it fun for me. Fish with your friends. And then on top of that, I try not to go where I know the bites are going to be terrible. So if I'm fishing in July, I'm probably not fishing daytime on Center Hill and Del Hollow. I chase the bite around through the state of Tennessee, and that's what I've been trying to do through these classes, is chase the bite and show you the next best bite in the state. So we started with jerk baits, and then we did bed fishing right on Center Hill. This is the bush bite. The bush bite is the next best bite. It should be now for the next 2 weeks, give or take, and then these fish are going to leave the bushes, and the bite after that's going to be the ledge bite. And then after that, we get into Jason's wheelhouse in July, and that is grass on Nickajack and Chickamauga, and we'll show you how to do that too. So hang with us. We're going to chase the bite around Tennessee and show you how to catch fish and have fun, and not just go out to the lake and be bored. So stay with us, right, Jason?
Absolutely. Thanks everybody for joining us. If you got some friends that fish, please share this. Please try to get the word out. TWRA is putting a lot of investment into that, and to try to help everyone in the state catch some more fish and enjoy the sport of fishing even more, and to enjoy it more. Obviously involve friends, involve family, and then we all ultimately like to catch fish. So that's what we're here for. So again, check me out. Let me know. Hit me up. I know Mike can say the same thing. If you've got questions, hit him up. Thanks everybody again for joining. Sorry we went a few minutes over, but hopefully you learned something, and we look forward to seeing you on the water next time.
That's right. We'll catch y'all later. These events are going to be on GoOutdoorsTennessee.com. So all of our virtual classes are there, and we'll see y'all next month. I'll see you later, Jason. Thank y'all.
Thanks everybody. Take care.